So if you only have $1,000 to deploy and you want some NFT exposure and you can't afford an individual NFT, or you don't want to just buy one project, you could buy all these individual tokens and build a passive NFT index.
Technically, you're a return guest, although your first appearance was on All About Your Benjamins, and this is Advisor Tomorrow. So the audience of this is for financial advisors. So
Okay,
that's why
great.
I want to try to use this podcast to get people to be open to exploring and learning about crypto and NFTs and all that space, which, like, just from the outside looking in, that's what it looks like you did. Like, you just kind of like started tinkering around with it, and then now I see you more into it, and you get the Pirates of Finance and all those things. I'm like, I can't quite tell, is Corey serious, and is he thinking about this stuff, or is he just learning and playing around? Like, so I don't know.
Maybe a little bit of both. I was talking to someone earlier today, and they said, they had really just been dipping their toe in crypto, and I said, I feel like I went from dipping my toe in crypto earlier this year to now I'm drowning in it. Mm-hmm. And it's hard not to, because of the pace at which the entire crypto space moves. I think for me, the big catalyst, several years ago, I was interested in Bitcoin just because I come from a computer science background. It's technologically a very interesting solution. And I had some Bitcoin, one of those lost wallet type situations. I have no idea how much was ever in there, probably not much. But for the longest time, I just didn't really see the use case. And it was actually talking to Mike Philbrick from Resolve Asset Management earlier this spring, and he said, the interesting thing about right tail assets is when the consensus is negative against something, that's when you have the real possibility for a right tail asset, because capitulation is everyone buying it. Mm-hmm. And he was talking about crypto, and he just is one of those people that I think naturally gravitates well. His personality gravitates well towards right tail assets, whereas I think my personality is the exact opposite. I'm much more of a skeptic. Mm-hmm. And so I said, okay, you want to know what? I need to learn more, because I have been sort of arm's length from crypto, not really understanding the use of it. And there's a large number of very, very smart people that I know that have gotten more and more involved in the space. And I can't really find any other example in history where there's been a industry that has been developed with that much sort of human capital put into it that ultimately amounted to nothing. And so at that point, I said, I just need to learn more. And so, I sort of transitioned in the easy way, which was you buy a little Bitcoin, you buy a little Ethereum, you start learning about the other tokens, maybe you buy some others. I happened to be living in Grand Cayman at the time, which being a resident of Grand Cayman gave me the ability to trade in some of these offshore exchanges. So I could trade some of the derivative products and do more complex trades like basis trades, cash and carry trades, that sort of stuff, which was fun just for me as a quant. And then I started learning about yield farming. And then more recently, it's just been like rushing into NFTs, just sort of as a bit of a summer fun, I guess.
We're gonna have to recruit you to OnRamp before too long. Now you're getting deep into it. And so before we go even further into it, I do want to go take a step back and just get a update on what's going on with Newfound. So listeners of this podcast may have listened to All About Your Benjamins when I was first starting. You were my first quote unquote big guest. You were the first checkmark guest I had on my podcast. I was like,
and then you learn that blue check mark doesn't mean much after me.
No, it's still impressive. I have to give the story because this speaks to the type of person that you are and why I have so much respect for you, beyond like how smart and brilliant you are. But I remember the first time we connected, it was via Twitter DM, and it was January or February, I forget what year. And the DM was just, hey, one of my New Year's resolutions is to reach out to people that I interact with on Twitter to get to know them better. So we had a phone call, and like that phone call and a little bit of time I get to spend with you, maybe it was a Zoom, was enough for me to have the confidence to say, okay, I think I can reach out to Corey and have him come on All About Your Benjamin. So had you on, and then we've been able to manage, staying in touch. I joked with Caitlin Cook, who's our head of OnRamp Academy and research at OnRamp. we were talking about the podcast, and I said, yeah, I remember back to when I was in LA a couple summers ago, summers ago, and Corey took me on a nice sunset dinner date down at the beach. So we met up, we worked out, got some deadlifts in, and then met up and had tacos as the sun set on the Pacific Ocean. It was very romantic.
It's a better date than I've ever taken my wife on.
But yeah, before we go further, we may have some people who listen and kind of follow just what's new with Newfound, what are you guys up to? And then we'll dive into kind of your exploration with the crypto and go further along what you were just sharing with us.
Yeah, so for people who've never heard of Newfound Research, I'm the co-founder and CIO of Newfound Research. We're a quantitative asset management firm really focused on trying to help investors and advisors proactively navigate risk. We believe that the best way to do that is with diversification, but it's more than just what you invest in, but it's also how and when you invest. Historically, as a firm, we got our start back in August 2008. We sort of thought the best way we could help advisors was with a more focused portfolio solution around trend following. And coming out of March 2020 last year, I really took a step back from that experience and said, I think markets have evolved to a point that trying to build a resilient equity portfolio needs to account for some of these new market dynamics. So I did a big research piece titled Liquidity Cascades. Sort of the summary version of that is that markets are just getting weirder. We're seeing more right tails, so more extreme things happening to the upside, more melt ups, and conversely, we're seeing faster drawdowns. And the reason for that seems to be sort of a confluence of different things, both central bank intervention, market maker, microstructure issues, the rise of passive investing with ETFs, and then the rise of a lot of sort of defensive style strategies that are all different but highly correlated in how they behave. And this sort of all in culmination leads to these sort of melt up and meltdown effects. So we made a big portfolio change last year. I sort of took a step back and said, I think I can't look in the rearview mirror as to how we should be managing money. I really believe this research tells me I need to completely upend the way we're managing money going forward. And so we spent most of Q3 last year really tearing our portfolio apart and rebuilding it from the ground up. And I think it's really paid off for us, both, knock on wood, on performance so far this year, but as well as sort of the way the portfolio's behaved throughout the year is, I think, much more predictable for our advisor clients, as well as just proven to be more resilient. So can't complain, very happy with the way things are going. The advisor conversations we're having, our clients seem to be very happy. So, knock on wood, all that continues.
Is there a common theme within the conversations you're having with advisors? Is like one area that they're looking at, or what's a common thread that other advisors listening advisors love to know, what are other advisors doing? What are they talking about? What are they thinking about? So is there one common theme that you're seeing?
Well, it won't surprise anyone listening who's an advisor. Most advisors I talk to are struggling with what to do with fixed income. And so there's really two ways our conversation goes, because our portfolio is really meant to be sort of a resilient equity solution. It is equity dominant, but the idea is there are some hedges embedded in there for the downside. And so we have things like put options that are going to be a drag on the portfolio on the upside, but can serve as a hedge on the downside. So a lot of our conversation with advisors is there a way to, instead of using bonds, which are a sort of both a volatility dampener, but a long-term return dampener, can we replace some bonds with this put exposure? And then conversely, the other thing we really do within our portfolio is this idea of return stacking. So if you invest $1 in our portfolio, you get about, on average, 75 cents of equity exposure and 75 cents of bond exposure, which adds up to more than $1, right? Mm-hmm. And it's a little bit more nuanced than that, and we're active in those. But just say on average, you get 75 cents of equity, 75 cents of $1. So if you say have a 60-40 portfolio, and you were to take 7.5% from equity and 7.5% from bonds, and remove and sell it, and put 10% in our strategy, well, that 10% gives you the full 15 that you just sold, but frees up 5%. And so the question is, wow, now you've got 5% of portfolio real estate that you can do interesting things with. You can keep it in cash. and you deploy it opportunistically. For some of the family offices we talk to, they like to keep it in cash because then they can use it for capital calls for hedge funds and private investments. Or you can use it to invest in true alternatives that a lot of times you have to, as an advisor, make a decision of, well, am I going to sell bonds or sell equities to buy managed futures, which my clients hate, and I'm now underexposed to those assets? Well, the idea with return stacking is you can sort of get a bit of a 2-for-1 with our portfolio, frees up that real estate that you can then allocate to those diversifying alternatives.
It's interesting because Jeremy Schwartz was on the podcast, maybe the episode before. I haven't laid them all out yet, but I already had the conversation with him, and they were talking about their model portfolios. Where do you pull? Because they have a crypto model portfolio. Where do you pull? And in one situation, they pull from equity. In another, they pull for bonds. So interesting that you have that. My first thought was, that 5% can go to Bitcoin or NFTs.
Exactly.
Or what we're going to talk about today. Well, for anybody listening or watching, if the first part of this conversation is really, really interesting, maybe we can get you to come back and kind of elaborate more on how you got there and go deeper into this, because that wasn't where I thought I was going, but I could see where that would be the case. You need to say bye real quick?
He's standing outside the door saying bye to me. It's all right.
No worries. Well, if he wants to come in, like I said, these shows are meant to come in. We'll keep his face off camera, and you can say. So Corey's nephew is off of camera, trying to say bye to his uncle. So he may come in and interrupt. And if he does, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, I think he's leaving.
Okay. So back to, that's a good transition. So we may have you come back to dive deeper. Maybe it'd be a mini episode if enough people want me to have you come back. Otherwise, I'm going to direct them to Newfound, all the research. For what it's worth, the research you guys put out is some of my favorite. And I actually encourage OnRamp Academy to steal a little bit of your style. So if you've ever looked at Newfound, they've got this long research, super quantity, a lot of data. But then my favorite part is the summary, that I can just read like 7 or 8 bullet points and get the majority of the important stuff. Like for what I'm doing and the way I operate, I don't need to know all the numbers. I trust you. So just give me the talking points, give me what I need to understand. And there's been times where I'm like, okay, I really want to understand it better. I dive deeper into it, but at minimum, I know what the point of the paper is, if I need to go deeper, and the talking points to go. So highly recommend the research for the investment.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So let's get to cryptos and NFTs, because that's what I wanted to talk to you about. And a little bit of background, the reason why. Corey is somebody that I look at as one of the smartest people I know. And so to see you getting into this space tells me it's even more confirmation that it's worth looking into. And one of my goals with this podcast is not necessarily to make advisors buy in and jump in, but just to get them to understand that there's enough people, to your point, enough talent, money flowing into the space that it's probably not going anywhere. So we need to start at least educating ourselves to have conversations. And my hope is just having someone like yourself talking about why you're learning about it, spending time there, dabbling in it, I think will help other advisors get more comfortable with, okay, I need to learn it. So that's my hope for here. One of the things that I love that you're doing right now that you guys kind of play around with a little bit is Pirates of Finance. So I want to plug that a little bit and learn more about how that came to be, and then start going further down your exploration of crypto and NFTs and everything.
Yeah. So Pirates of Finance, by the way. We gotta pronounce it correctly.
My bad.
Pirates of Finance is really the brainchild of my partner in crime, Jason Buck. He is a brilliant entrepreneur, incredibly creative guy, CEO of Mutiny Fund, CIO, of the Mutiny Fund, and just someone who I got to know last year, and we just clicked in so many ways. And he said, he's one of the people who just says, when I click with someone, I want to do something with them. And so he just kept hounding me and saying, I want to do something. Let's do a podcast. Let's do this. As someone who has my own podcast, I really wasn't interested in launching another podcast. And then YouTube came up, and there really isn't that much, how would I say it? High quality finance YouTube content. There's a lot of sort of like financial influencers, and I don't particularly care for the level of quality they have. And then there's a lot of like sort of gimmicky instructional trading workshop stuff. And we were trying to go down a different angle, which was higher quality, entertaining content, right? And it's probably still pretty niche, truth be told. It's still probably a little bit too quanty, not applicable for a super broad audience, but hopefully advisors find it entertaining, and it allows us to sort of step outside the traditional portfolios we manage and talk about topics that we don't necessarily get to touch day to day, like what's going on in crypto or different articles and research that we're reading that we think is really cool. We just did an episode last week where Jason recently launched a hedge fund. And I said, let's sort of go behind the scenes. What does it actually take to launch a hedge fund? What's the process for someone out there who's never launched a hedge fund? So we're trying to do stuff like that, and it's meant to be casual, right? I think finance for a long time has been a very serious job, and it should be serious. What we do is really important, really matters when we're talking about managing other people's money. But to me, serious doesn't mean we shouldn't be able to have fun. And so they're hopefully lighthearted conversations, hopefully you get a chuckle out of them, and learn something along the way.
One of my favorite episodes is still the one where somebody sent you rum, and the whole debacle of getting the rum and back and forth in the amount of time. That was phenomenal. I thought the editing was phenomenal. Like I thought it was real good. Like it did make me laugh. It was entertaining. I didn't learn anything on it other than how much of a pain in the ass that was.
Other than don't send someone in Cayman Island 3 bottles of rum because customs will never let them get it.
It was awesome. So let's get to the subject at hand for today, and kind of starting with your expert. You alluded to it a little bit in the intro. I didn't know it was going to be the intro, but what we started off with and just kind of seeing it. But further, like, I guess maybe take us from where we left off of you seeing money coming here and you to learn about it. You buy a little bit of Bitcoin, you buy a little Ether. Now you're buying some NFTs. But as you kind of started to fall down that rabbit hole, what kept you going down it rather than pivoting away?
So I'm the type of person, personality-wise, that for me to learn, it has to be tactile. Like I have to lose money, truth be told. And so I can't just sort of learn what is Bitcoin and Ethereum from the outside theoretically. I have to invest some money in it, and I have to watch it. And then I have to, if people are talking about DeFi, decentralized finance, I need to go mess around with decentralized finance. And it's the easiest way for me to overcome my biases. I think entering this space, I was incredibly biased because a lot of the names are just very silly, like Sushi Swap and Uniswap. And, you learn about these things, and it's hard to take them seriously until you learn that there's billions of dollars flowing through these platforms every single day, every single week. And it's a whole new dynamic for someone coming from a traditional finance background that's used to a centralized exchange with a bid-ask order book. To go try to play in the decentralized finance space is very, very different. And so for me, it really meant getting my hands dirty. I don't have a good why I keep doing it, other than it is interesting. And I do believe it will pay dividends. I just don't know when. It might be the knowledge is useful a year from now, 5, 10, 15 years from now. I don't know when crypto is going to have a real practical sort of life-changing impact for me or anyone else who's listening. But you start to mess around with this stuff and you see, okay, I see how this works. So for example, one of the real eye-opening moments for me was with a platform called Aave. And Aave is a lending and borrowing platform. So I can say buy $10,000 of Bitcoin, post Bitcoin as collateral on Aave, and then borrow against it. And all of that requires almost zero red tape. I just can get a loan like that. And I just have to watch my collateral ratio. And so it's this very laissez-faire form of finance. And what's been really astounding to watch is the speed at which it's moving. All these primitives have been built, these very simple financial primitives, and then they're all stacking on top of each other like money Legos. And next thing you know, you have these incredibly complex financial derivatives that normally would be, someone would be prohibited from trading unless they have an ISDA or something like that. And now all of a sudden you can buy a token that's the equivalent. Whether you should be able to do that, I don't know. But you see it happening at this rapid speed, and you can say, wow, this really does, in an amazing way, flatten access to the world of finance to anyone who wants to get involved.
I laugh when you said ISDA because it made me think of The Big Short when the guys go to pitch JP Morgan and they're not saying it right. But yeah, so and Aave also has like they've got where you can earn higher yield on your cash basically, and there's in compound like the DeFi. As I joined OnRamp and started learning more and spending more time on it and being on calls with these DeFi companies, like I really do see and believe this like our profession will get changed by these companies. Now, it's going to take a long time because the incumbents have such a stronghold on everything and they're going to fight it. But I think eventually the market's just going to naturally pull everything there. And they're going to have to follow slowly but surely. And once you get one of the big dogs to kind of fall, then the rest of them are going to go with it. But I just don't see how the younger generation knowing this stuff is out there and experimenting with it now. And even though it's very early, I don't see them going back and say, no, let's go back to the old way that was prohibitive and very slow and exclusionary, where we can have this new way where it's quick, it's cheap, we can control it, it doesn't exclude as many people, it's better for everybody, it's more equitable. I just don't see, now that they know that it's there, them going back. So I really do think this space will change because of these projects. Now, are the projects today leading the way going to be the same ones that are there in 5 or 6 years? Probably not. Like there might be one or two that make it, but to your point, they're Legos. They're stacking on top of each other. Like you look at some of the protocols and projects out there like Solana stacking on Ethereum and making Ethereum better, and then there's gonna be something that stacks on Solana and just gonna keep on building, which is what excites me. Like I think it really is exciting.
And it moves incredibly fast. 1 month in crypto time feels like years in sort of traditional markets at the speed they move. I mean, I woke up this morning and some of my crypto positions are up 35%, right? Now, tomorrow, I'm sure they'll be down 35%. But when you're talking those levels of volatility, it's a very different speed. And you've got this big ball of money that seems to be rushing around the crypto space. And it was in sort of Bitcoin and Ethereum. And then it moved into some of the other chains that are coming out like Cardano and Solana, and then all of a sudden it's moved to NFTs and people are trying to speculate where the money's going to next. And you do see sort of hopefully this rising tide lifts all boats within crypto, but it's a competitive space. I think a lot of it is going to be winner takes all with some of these projects, and so they're all fighting for liquidity. And we don't know how it'll turn out. So for me, it's about diversifying my bets if I am taking any sort of long-term bets. But it's a fascinating space that I think you have to play with to really truly understand.
And I would agree. And my path was the same as yours. I bought a little Bitcoin, bought a little ETH. I ended up buying Litecoin back in 2017. Kind of just let it ride. And then as of late, I bought my first couple NFTs. I had my first experience with Uniswap because I had to wrap to go ahead and buy this other NFT that I bought. And I'm only buying the super, super cheap stuff with expectations that it's not going to be the next CryptoPunk. It's not going to be the next Bored Ape. Like I'm not playing that game. To your point, I need to learn and understand how this stuff works and how to use MetaMask and everything. And to me, it's fun to learn those things. But I also understand why advisors are reluctant to learn all of it. That's where I think the opportunity for us is not necessarily to advise our clients on how to go do it, but more importantly, point out the things that they shouldn't do or things to be aware of. Like don't blow yourself up, or don't lose these keys, or don't lose these passwords, and make sure you save them and just prevent them from causing a big problem as they get up to speed on the space. Speaking of getting up to speed, you've done a lot of research, and for someone who's not a quant but an advisor working with clients and investments, do you have any areas you would recommend them starting their education? Any books, podcasts, anything that you found to be very valuable that you would want to recommend?
I will say that I didn't find any books that were particularly useful because, again, this space moves so quickly that anything written gets really outdated. Mm-hmm. I actually went through and found the best way for me was finding a group of very active, well-known Twitter profiles for people in crypto. And this is another place you sort of need to set aside your preconceived notions. I sent a tweet out maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it was sort of a joke, sort of not, that I said the people who have the most insight in crypto in my Twitter feed right now have an avatar that's a cat in a hazmat suit, a blueberry, and Elmo on fire. And these are completely anonymous people but they have deep backgrounds and a deep understanding of how the landscape is changing. And you have to be willing to say, a lot of the people who have made money in crypto want to stay anonymous, and you have to just be willing to follow them a little bit and learn about what they're saying. So for me, unfortunately, there were no articles, there were no books, there were no podcasts necessarily. I mean, I think you can sort of get started in the Bitcoin and Ethereum space, but once you start talking DeFi, you got to get your hands dirty.
In your learning process, and as you continue to learn, what's the thing that you've learned that's been the biggest surprise about anything within the space?
I think the biggest surprise to me has been behavior that I think would not work. Trades that I wouldn't think would work in the traditional finance space seem to have legs in crypto. And I don't want to say it's because it's a less sophisticated like clientele in crypto, but I think part of it is that you don't have the large institutions there to arbitrage out certain trades. So, three immediate examples come to mind. One, very early on, I didn't want to put a lot of money at risk in crypto, and I still don't, but I didn't want to be very long only. So I was doing what was called a cash and carry trade, where I would buy something like Bitcoin and sell Bitcoin futures. Now, what that does is it nets out my exposure to Bitcoin, but if the Bitcoin futures are trading at a higher price, if I just have to wait, and the premium will collapse over time. And you would normally expect there to be somewhat of a premium depending on the market, but these premiums were north of 20% annualized, right? So it's not that much risk to do this trade. And so someone coming from a traditional finance space saying, wow, I can get 20% annualized, like that's phenomenal. Why is no one taking this trade? Well, as I've come to learn, there aren't that many institutions that can really allocate to crypto yet for regulatory reasons. And individuals in the US can't do a lot of these trades because you have to go through the KYC process. So there's not that much competition to take the other side. And I thought it was a joke at first, but a lot of the people within crypto would say, why would I tie up my capital for a 20% annual return when I can go for 1,000? And anyone listening to this, again, as an advisor would say, that's ridiculous. But I also just told you I woke up this morning and I have positions that are up 35% today. So there are people who truly have that mentality, but it also makes the opportunity exist. So that would never exist in the traditional finance world, except for like really super rare occasions where markets are, quote unquote, broken for a short time period. That was pretty permanent for about 6 months when I got in January. Other things like short-term momentum. I mean, you just see it. Things start to take off and you would normally say, okay, I'm not going to move into that token. Nope, there seems to be a lot of people chasing things, right? That you wouldn't expect. And it seems to be a very valid strategy. Trend following and momentum are incredibly powerful effects within the crypto space. And then third, you just sometimes see outright arbitrages. So there was one that happened this week. There's a token called Radium, I believe it is. And you get all these different exchanges trading these tokens. Binance is one very big exchange, and FTX is another exchange. And on Binance, the token I think was trading for $18, and on FTX it was trading for $12. So if you had money in the right places at the right time, that is really truly about as close to a risk-free trade as you could get. But you had to have money in the right places at the right time. But those things pop up because collateral doesn't move around the blockchain all that easily sometimes.
Interesting. So you're talking about all these strategies. When and do you think those strategies make their way into regular investment? Like when would Newfound implement some of that in your strategies? Is it a regulatory thing that holds it up, or is it just you need some more history? Kind of when do you think that comes into play?
So it's absolutely regulatory, right? We have to deal with issues like custody. You have to deal with issues like accounting. Even something as trivial as what is the price of Bitcoin? You would think, well, the price of Bitcoin is the price of Bitcoin. Well, it's not. I just told you Radium was trading for $18 on one exchange and $12 on another. Now, that's an extreme example, but Bitcoin doesn't actually trade for the same price on every single exchange. close to the same price. So how do you say what, the NAV of your fund is? Where are you quoting? Is it an average? How are you calculating that average? So things like that, I think, really need to be worked out. You are seeing a lot more hedge funds popping up. I have a large number of friends now that have started to move into that space, either joining hedge funds or starting their own. But a lot of them are being forced offshore. They're moving to Singapore, Panama, or just outside the US because the regulatory environment here is still very, very stringent when it comes to trading the really interesting derivative contracts that exist in this space.
All right, let's pivot over to NFTs. We've mentioned them a number of times, but I've seen you playing around with them more, and we're going to get to your index fund idea, or index, I guess, towards the end, which, again, I was mentioning before. Couldn't quite tell if you were serious about it or just playing around, so we'll get more on that. But what is it about the NFT space, or I guess what's your opinion today, August 30th, on NFTs and kind of what their role is and where they play? And then this could age great or could age poorly. We'll never know. But it'll be fast. We'll know pretty soon.
Yeah. So I think I have sort of 4 views that all have a probabilistic weight. 5 views, actually. 5 views. So one is certain types of NFTs truly represent a valuable digital asset. And I know there's a lot of people who say you can just right click and download the picture.
I'm going to interrupt. That annoys me so much.
I know.
Because how many prints of a Van Gogh, how many prints of a Mona Lisa that are out there that don't take away from the value of the original? That's the right click argument. It's like that already exists. It's getting your head around the fact that people would actually want a digital version versus a print version. But you have to think about all the people who are coming up that they've grown up in a digital world. Like they don't communicate other than they're text messaging their friend across the couch from them. So this is what they've known. So why would they want this physical thing that they're not, that doesn't resonate with them when a digital one was? And now you can put it as your avatar and flex, and anybody can go check on the blockchain that you actually own that avatar and it's yours. Like, I just hate the control copy thing because it's so stupid. It really annoys me. And I was to interrupt you.
No. I think, but that is a big hurdle for a lot of people who just go, you can right click and download. So 2 things I would say. One, we have to respect the fact that there's certain art that can be done in a digital space that cannot necessarily be achieved in a physical space. So I think that's truly unique digital art that's interesting to think about. And maybe it's hard to envision ourselves going to a digital museum, but when you consider that the resolution that you might be able to experience this digital art at could be magnitudes greater than, you standing 15 feet back from the Mona Lisa in a crowd of 100 people trying to see it, the experience might be different, but that might be where we go in 10, 15 years for some very beautiful digital artwork. As far as the right click and download, I think the other piece there is that imagine Twitter in the future, instead of just allowing you to upload your avatar, you can actually verify your avatar with your wallet. Mm-hmm. So you go to upload an NFT and you can actually prove that you own that NFT in your wallet. And not only that, they go the extra step to say, let me track this token back to the originating contract to prove that it's part of whatever project it comes from, whether it's a CryptoPunk or... So you could have true verification that you own that avatar. And I think, again, that has value for a generation that has spent a huge amount of time living in a digital space. Mm-hmm. I know when I was younger, for example, I grew up like right before the major, massively multiplayer RPGs got popular, but I still played them. And I poured hundreds of hours into collecting digital goods that are totally worthless. And a lot of them that I collected were purely for status, right? They didn't make my character better. It was just, I had a rare item that was a hat on my head that said I was a wealthy player in the game, that I had played a certain number of hours. And it's pure status, the same way someone might wear a Rolex in the real world instead of a Tudor, right? So there's that aspect of it. I think we have to recognize again, and I think it's tied to that for these profile picture projects, CryptoPunks and Bored Apes and Pudgy Penguins. I think there's a bit of an in-crowd aspect of it of, hey, there's only so many crypto punks, and me owning that and using it as my avatar tells you something about me as a person. And by the way, tells you I'm sort of flexing, to your point. It's a digital flex. So we can't overlook that. And tied into that, I think we need to recognize a lot of people buying those projects and the very wealthy art are people who have a tremendous amount of money tied up in the crypto space that don't have much else to do with it, that are going to get taxed like crazy if they try to take it into fiat. And a lot of these people are candidly just hiding their money from the government. They're using projects like Tornado Cash to try to go from one wallet anonymously into dozens of other wallets, and they have thousands and thousands of ether. So what does it mean to spend 100 ether on a CryptoPunk? You know? So I think we have to sort of establish, like, they live in a digital world. They have a ton of digital money. They can't necessarily take it out without incurring big taxes. They're hiding it from the government. Why not do a digital flex, right? There's definitely a bit of money laundering going on, I would presume. But when you look at the grand scheme of how much money laundering is reported in the world versus how much NFT sales are, it's like, I mean, maybe this is like politically incorrect, but you could see buying NFTs as a way to get long money laundering as a service. I hate to say it, but if you think some of that's going on, you know, that's certainly an aspect of it. I don't know how many I counted. I said I had 5. I feel like I'm stopping at 4 here, but there's a lot of interesting. I think it goes beyond just I can right click and copy your JPEG. Why are people paying for a digital image? I think these things have clout. I think there's a future in which there are digital worlds in which they're shown off. And I think we need to recognize that we might be the old out of touch generation at this point. That this might have a lot more value to a younger generation. And so I think it's worth asking that younger generation, what are they putting value on? Right now, it seems to be these projects.
The other thing about NFTs I really like is the smart contract aspect of it for the creator. You know, building in the ability that you continue to get residuals off of every future sale of your art, whether that's music or the digital art, whatever it may be that you sell. They have embedded in these smart contracts that every time it gets sold, whatever the selling price for, they get 5, 10, 15, whatever it might be percent cut, and it automatically happens. So there's no way that they get cut out of it, where artists of the past, they got paid on the first sale and that was it. So they, sell a painting for $1,000 and 20 years later it's selling for $20 million. They got none of that appreciation, where with the smart contracts, it gives them that. And what I love about this space is I feel like the crypto space, including everything, DeFi, NFTs, everything in crypto, it puts more power in the individual's hand and allows us, I feel like it allows us to go out and take more control over our future than we've been able to in the past. And it's not going to be perfect, and there's still going to be things we have to go through, but it's much easier now to set up a bit. I mean, Jack Butcher, he's extremely brilliant and was successful before NFTs popped off. But you look at what he's been able to do with his visualized value business and then go run it into the NFT world. Like, that is something that prior to this, he would have been limited on what he could do. And to me, it's just awesome. And then he takes it and he does projects for, Afghanistan and things going over there as fundraisers. It puts the power in the individual hands, and I think it equalizes the playing field a little bit. So those are the things that excite me about it, is just equalizing things a little bit more.
I think it's a hugely powerful point that artists can get in perpetuity royalties for their work. And that if the world discovers the artist 20 years later and the art 20 years later, it's not like the artist won't be compensated if the contracts are written correctly. I think that's a hugely powerful point. And I think one of the reasons you might see more work move to the digital space, or you might see physical art come with a digital token. And that wouldn't prevent people from necessarily selling the art independent of the token. But if you said from a legal capacity, the art belongs to the token holder, anyone who wants to buy the art would be forced to buy the token, right? Because if I just bought the art from you, you could turn around and go to a court and say, that person stole my artwork. Look, I can prove I own the token. The other really cool thing thinking out what can happen. I think Gary Vee, who I know you follow, has some really interesting. I don't particularly like his NFTs, by the way. I don't care for the style, but I think there's some really interesting ideas around. You can prove you belong to a community, and having it in your wallet allows you to participate in real life sort of events. So if you have his NFT, it entitles you to go to future speaking engagements that he has. We're already seeing that both in physical and digital form, that if you own certain NFTs and you go to certain Discord groups, connecting your wallet allows you into private chats. Again, for a very digital first generation, that has tremendous value. And then for other people who want sort of physical events, we're seeing NFTs being used as evidence of ownership that allows you to attend physical events. So I just think we're being too focused on the current micro bubble that's probably happening. And yes, there's been an absurd run up in prices in the short term. But I think if we look out 5, 10, 15 years, I think NFTs are a very creative idea that will probably have a decent impact on the way things operate.
You mentioned a word that I think is very important in all this as well, and I want to find a guest to come on and talk about, but community. I'm fortunate to know a little bit of the power of community just from the AGC and co-founding that, and that's just financial advisors. We have 160 advisors globally now. But you look at like the CryptoPunks and the Bored Apes, like that's not only is it the art and it's kind of cool and it's unique and you've got the flex, but then on top of that you have this community component, and people are craving community and being surrounded by like-minded people, and that community is what brings so much value to some of these as well. So that they tell you as you're looking at NFT projects, learn more about the community, get into the Discord, see what they're about, and the stronger the community, the more likely that NFT project has some legs and will live on. Because you have the people who are gonna put the floors in. Like they talk about the floor of the prices of the NFTs, like that's put in by the community.
Right. Well, and to add on that, it's not just the community, but it's the developers, because an example that just happened today, not to put too fine a point on when this was recorded, but owners of Pudgy Penguins are now entitled, as of today, to go to the Pudgy Penguin website and mint an NFT that is an egg. It's a Pudgy egg. And that egg is going to hatch on December 25th. But we just saw it with Bored Apes, that they did a mutant version that anyone could go mint, but Bored Ape holders were airdropped an NFT that was some sort of like mutant serum that they could apply to their Bored Ape, combine the two NFTs together to create a whole new NFT that came out of it. And I think when you start to think of it that way and say, well, I'm not just buying this JPEG, but actually this might be a digital asset that's part of a roadmap that has future, I mean, I hate to say cash flow, but interesting assets that can come your way. I mean, I was very seriously giving thought this morning and talking to one of my analysts. How do you price a Pudgy Penguin that goes X airdrop? That once the airdrop happens, you split the link between the value of the two NFTs, but there's now this embedded premium in Pudgy Penguins because Pudgy Penguin holders go, wow, I could get more of this in the future. You don't know what that optionality is worth, but it has to play into the price somewhere. And so you're seeing these different projects that are saying, look, buy our NFT now. And in the minting of these NFTs, when you pay us to get the original NFTs out of the project, you're going to help us bootstrap our business. So games can do this, right? And or metaverses, or just different interesting communities. It's a way for people to almost prepay. They get the NFT, and that NFT proves membership of that community, and hopefully the money in the mint goes to fulfill whatever roadmap the developers put out there. So again, I think there's some really interesting, powerful community elements, future cash flow parts of this that are being overlooked by the right click and download crowd.
All right, let's hop to your index idea. You put together a list of a bunch of projects. Like, were you serious? Are you thinking of trying to do something like that? I mean, we may have talked about regulatory. You might not be able to do that. But kind of explain the concept, the idea behind it, what you were trying to prove, or not prove, but point out. And then if you think anything like that has some legs.
So to take a step back, right, the whole idea of an NFT is it's non-fungible. So the NFT I own is not the same as the NFT you own. In reality, what you tend to see with most of these projects is there's a gradient of value, and there's a certain set of NFTs that sort of trade at what's called the floor. It's the lowest asking price anyone's willing to part with. And for the most part, those are, unless someone finds one particularly unique and loves it and never wants to let it go, they're all sort of fungible with each other from a monetary value perspective. And so what's happened is there's these protocols, these projects have popped up that allow people to put floor assets into a vault. And then what comes out are tokens. So one way to think about this, and it's a bit of a stretch, but these NFTs, a lot of them are illiquid. Think of them as like some illiquid asset that we all put together in an ETF, and then we sell shares of the ETF. And because we're just selling shares of the bigger illiquid group of assets, those shares can then trade on the secondary market without the underlying assets ever trading. And as so long as you have some sort of arbitrage mechanism, those shares should trade around what the value of those assets within that ETF are trading for. And so that's sort of what's been built. When I talk about the DeFi space and crypto is really replicating everything in finance at a very high speed, that's exactly what I mean. You're seeing the fractionalization of NFTs emerging very rapidly on the heels of NFTs coming to market. Mm-hmm. And so there's a website, and there's a number of websites that do this, but one is nftx.org, where there's a number of vaults. And so you could buy, instead of buying a CryptoPunk, which most of us can't afford anymore, you can buy punk tokens. Instead of buying a Bored Ape, which most of us can't afford anymore, you could buy Bored Ape tokens. And you could, in theory, go through and say, what are the prices that all of these are trading at? What's sort of the market cap that they're valued at? And build an index by buying all these fractional tokens. And so if you only have $1,000 to deploy and you want some NFT exposure and you can't afford an individual NFT, or you don't want to just buy one project, you could buy all these individual tokens and build a passive NFT index. And I think that's pretty cool.
I thought it was an awesome idea. So yeah, I have no doubts that that'll be. You need to get with Wes and the fellows over at Alpha Architect now that they're white labeling ETFs. And
yeah, I'm not sure the SEC is going to approve this one. They're not approving a Bitcoin ETF. I'm not sure an NFT illiquid token ETF is going to get through anytime soon.
Well, we can hope. We can hope. All right, so I want to kind of bring this combo to an end. I think we could keep on going forever. Like there's so many things that popped in my mind that I had to just say stop. But going back to part of the reason to have you on is to expose advisors to this space from somebody who has spent a lot of time researching it, learning it, putting hands on, figuring things out. What would be your advice to advisors when it comes to handling this space with clients? Is it be proactive and have the conversations your clients want to have, answer their questions before they have them? Is it be reactive? Like, how would you recommend or advise clients to approach this space when it comes to their clients?
I'm not an advisor. Let's start there.
That's fair.
But I think the reality is, just from a purely generational perspective, most advisors are probably dealing with an older clientele who are not ever really going to be all that interested in crypto. If you are having an older clientele that is interested in crypto, it's probably the exception, not the rule. So from a dollar-weighted basis, right now, I would presume most advisors actually aren't having too much of this conversation. It's going to be the younger generation that's using Robinhood right now that has easy access to buy Dogecoin, or whatever they're buying. That's going to be more interested in this because they've been doing it on their own. And so when they then turn their money over to an advisor, they want to know how they're getting access to this. I would say that, and again, I'm not your compliance department, but one of the interesting things about crypto is, for the most part, it's not going to violate any sort of trading rules anyone in the finance industry has. So for example, it's very hard for me to trade individual equities or any ETF without going through my compliance group first. I can trade crypto all I want because it's not related to anything I do with my clients. So the first thing I would say to an advisor is put a little bit of money aside, and you just have to play. You just have to try it. because it's going to be impossible for you to truly judge or understand what's going on without hands-on experience or having someone walk you through it. So working with a group that really has hands-on experience that can show you, hey, these are the different things that are happening. I would also say you got to keep an open mind. It's very easy for us in traditional finance to be highly skeptical of crypto because I don't think anything concrete has actually come out of it in a decade. It doesn't affect our day-to-day lives yet, but it doesn't mean we couldn't turn the corner and then suddenly there's a big change. There's a lot of really bright people working in this space and a lot of really amazing things happening. You might find 5 years from now, everyone's out getting a mortgage from a crypto firm, right? That all the red tape's been removed and it's all going through smart contracts. You never know. It might be other forms of insurance. Who knows? And so I think advisors, again, you just have to get your hands dirty, or you have to work with a company that can really walk you through what the experience is like. Because I think the younger generation who's going to look to have their money managed eventually is going to want exposure to this in some way or another.
I also think some of the older generation, you're going to have like the hip grandparents that are kind of in the know, and instead of gifting them money, they're going to gift them some Bitcoin. They're going to gift them an NFT and get their grandkids learning about, think about the people who have had success investing and they're forward thinking enough, even being, older, that, hey, this is what might get my grandkids or my great grandkids interested in investing. Let me give them something to educate them on that, get them going. So we've had conversations where advisors have clients who are wanting to gift their grandkids Bitcoin. So I think that it might trickle its way into the older client demographic more than we think. And then if we're thinking about longevity of business, like if you're going to have a business that's going to be here 20 years from now, you need to be able to work with young professionals and get with them now rather than later. And I think just having the conversation and not dismissing will separate you from the majority of our profession and make you stand out to those young professionals who are going to inherit this wealth down the road. So, and
I think right now, again, it's very hard for advisors to get access in a nice, clean, and easy way via, say, an ETF. I do know, for example, OnRamp is starting to provide access for advisors, working, I think it's through Gemini as custody. And so that is going to change. Advisors are going to be able to do this for clients. I think then the next question becomes, what's the strategy? You see the eye-popping returns that can happen. You also need to be very cognizant of the complete meltdown that can happen. And that with a little bit of research, what you can find is the same way you can index equity exposure for when you have no view and you just want passive. You can index crypto exposure. You can buy a DeFi index. You can buy a blue chip index. You can buy a metaverse index. There's different approaches out there. So you don't have to say to someone, hey, I'm going to go pick you the best. And that is going to be your expertise. It can be, look, maybe 1%, 3%, 5% of your portfolio is the appropriate amount of crypto. And we're going to put it in some effectively index exposure. So yeah, we're not going to pick the perfect token that pops all the time. But you're not going to miss any of the major runs either.
Stay tuned. OnRamp's got more and more to help out in that. Well, and as we close things out, I didn't get to ask you just celebrated a birthday a few weeks ago, maybe a month now. What was the birthday workout? So for those who don't know, Corey likes to crush himself when it comes to workouts on his birthday or just workouts in general. Because what did you do last year or 2 years ago, March for the Fallen? You had 50-pound weight vest on or 75, something crazy? Yeah,
75 last year. I won't be doing it this year. I'm a little disappointed. I'm going to be on Cayman, and I don't think I could find 28 miles to hike. So I got to find something else to do as a tribute on that day. Birthday workout this year. So last year I think I did 330 burpees for my 33rd birthday, broken up into sets of 10, so 33 sets of 10. This year, I decided I was going to try to do 340 burpees unbroken. I got through 170 and thought I was going to die of heat stroke. So then I closed out the remaining 170 in a very broken fashion.
Regardless, that's impressive.
Well, if you saw the last burpee, you wouldn't have said that.
Hey, you finished it. That's good. I have a friend that I went up to high school with. He did burpee broad jumps for a mile. So 4 laps around the track. I forget how long it took him to do it, but it looked miserable. I hate burpees, so I'm not doing that for my birthday. All right, so my final question for everybody. conferences are coming back, and I think music tells you a lot about an individual. So I'm curious to know, if you were keynote speaking and they bring you out and you kind of get your walkout music, what would be your walkout music right now?
Man, that is a good question. So there's two songs that come to mind for me. One is Beastie Boys' Sabotage.
Okay.
I can't listen to that and not get pumped up. I don't know whether it would work for a finance conference, maybe a sports game. And then the other one, if you listen closely to the Pirates of Finance intro song, you might notice there's a bit of an influence. The 2 Chainz song, "Money in the Way."
Oh, I'll have to go back and listen to that. I like
Go
that
back
song.
and give it a listen. There's some heavy influence going on because Jason and I love that song. So that's another great song that I would love to use as my walkout music.
I'm trying to listen to it in my head right now. I listened to it enough. I'm gonna go back and watch it when we get done. But you brought up an interesting point. I think that I need to add a follow up to this question of, so with your walkout music, are you listening to hype yourself up, or are you listening to get the crowd ready to go? Because it's different. So, Sabotage could work to come out and speak if it's about getting you hyped. But if it's about setting the tone for the audience, then maybe it's a different one. So you don't have to answer that. I just thought about that. I didn't think about the choice could be dual purposed.
Absolutely. I will say for as much speaking as I do, and I've done a lot of public speaking, can't say I love it.
No?
I always get nervous beforehand. So I think for me, I need the pump up music for myself.
Good. I like it. All right. Well, Corey, where can everybody find you per the norm? Over at justincastelli.io/blog. We'll have the video, but we'll also have all the show notes for everything. And then the links to the podcast version will be there too. But where would you like to direct everybody so I know where to link to?
Yeah, so before I even say that, I just want to say thank you for having me on. Really appreciate it. Always love chatting with you. I always love catching up. If people want to find me, they can get my website, thinknewfound.com, or they can find me on Twitter at @Hoffstein.
All right, and I'm going to also link to the Pirates. I can't say finance. Pirates of Finance. I can't say it.
Think Pirates of Penzance, and then
Okay.
just finance.
Gotcha. All right. Well, hey, man, I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're with family, so that makes it even more special that you took time out for us. I think you dropped a lot of gems on here, and hopefully it resonates with the advisor community. And if they want to get more quantity and learn more about the Cascades and all of that, maybe we get you back for a shorter episode and dive into that stuff as well. So appreciate your time. Appreciate your friendship as well. Looking forward to one day getting to hang out again in person and doing some deadlifts and some other crazy workouts.
Sounds great to me. Thanks again, Justin.
All right, appreciate it. All right, everybody, thanks for watching, listening, likes, reviews, all those great things, and we'll see you all in the next episode.